Hi everyone, I am joined today by Mauricio Flores. Welcome, Mauricio. And we are going to talk about your new book, Chess Imbalances, which is sort of the follow-up, not part two, but your second book after the success of Chess Structures. Welcome, Mauricio.
Hi everyone, and thank you for having me.
So first of all, you say in your preface that this book took 9 years to make. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so I was very excited after the first book was received so well. I received a lot of emails from a lot of people, including some very high-profile players. Like I remember even Nashi Baikitse, the kind of US champion, wrote to me at the time saying that she really liked the book. And many other very strong IMs and GMs. So, well, I was very excited to write something good, and I wanted to write about something that I thought would be like a universal topic, very interesting, but I also wanted to kind of keep a high standard. And that kind of obsession is like, okay, I wanted to make it equal or better. It was just so time consuming. It's like, I was very worried. It's like, I was like looking at the book and be like, okay, what were the flaws of the previous book? It's like, what things could be a little bit better? And it's just you try to make it a little bit better, it takes like more than double the time. And then it's like, just life happens. There were a lot of commitments and took a very long time, but I'm very happy with the results. So.
And your first book, how long did that one take in comparison?
Oh, that was very short. It was like, I would say 1 year, even a little bit less.
Oh, okay.
I would actually say the writing was done very quickly, like under 6 months. But before that, there's the preparation phase. Preparation, going through every chapter, figuring out what I'm going to write about, like selecting the games.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned in both prefaces that I put a very high emphasis on selecting the right games. Mm-hmm. So maybe I spend more time selecting games than writing, because I feel like once you have a beautiful game to show, writing is very easy. And if it's not a good game, writing is very uncomfortable. And sometimes I even write something and I'm like, oh, this is so bad that I'm just going to delete everything and find a better game before I write.
Yeah, okay, so you find that the game kind of writes itself if it's good.
Exactly. It doesn't require so much justification. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, this part was not that correct. I don't want to have those awkward moments.
Yeah. Okay, and before we get into the book and checking it out a bit, you are a player yourself, GrandMaster, #1 in Chile. Do you see yourself more as a player or an author now that you've got these two successful books?
That's a good question. Yeah, and I should point out, I think nowadays I'm #2 in Chile, because we have a very young player, not so young anymore, but like younger than me, Cristobal Enriquez, who has risen through the ranks, and he's now over 2,600 FIDE. Very strong player and a good friend of mine. But yeah, do I see myself more as a player or as a writer or coach? I would say writer/coach. I really enjoy that part more. I feel like I'm better at it, perhaps.
Okay. And coaching is an interesting point because, an author should be teaching the material, not just writing about it. So do you think your coaching background helps you be a better author?
For sure. Yeah, actually, to be honest, the reason I started writing the first book is whenever you prepare a lesson, it just takes so long to kind of find material that you're happy with, right? Mm-hmm. It's like sometimes it takes 3 hours to prepare a 1 hour lesson. If you really don't want to have any moments where you feel like I could be teaching something more interesting, right? So I just started kind of compiling some lessons that I was happy with, and gradually those became chapters, right? And then at some point I thought, okay, I'm just missing all these other chapters, I'm going to write them. And then once I ran out of that, I'm like, okay, I need to write another book. So between the two books, I think I got to a point where I had like a list of lessons. It's like almost like a lesson calendar. It was like over 100 hours, which is... I feel like you need that because I think a lot of people want to take lessons weekly and they last multiple years. So that's like my 2-year program.
Yeah. This is interesting because the best performing books, at least on forward chess, this system of what you've said now, of kind of compiling over the years the work that you already have and turning that into a book, this is a common thread that I've noticed. I've been interviewing a few authors, and I know the most successful books are like this. So it's not just from scratch material, it's actually things you've been speaking about and that you know very well. And
yeah, exactly. It also happens naturally, I think, because of course, what's the quickest way to prepare a lesson? You open a book that already exists, right? So when you write your own stuff, when you find something that you feel like it's not covered,
Yeah.
So it's I think more naturally
Hmm.
evolving into a book because it's something that already you search in other books and you couldn't find.
Okay. Well, let us get into the book itself. I'm going to open up Forward Chess over here. First of all, you can find the book Forward Chess. Very nice cover, by the way. Similar to the previous one, but some more color in this. I think it looks really cool.
Yeah, I actually had a discussion with John Shaw at the time. I really asked him like if you could please put this scale
Yeah.
as the cover, and then of course they follow that idea and they make a very beautiful cover. So I'm very happy with this one.
So I have opened the book on our Forward Chess web reader, and I'm going to give you access to walk us through the book. Do you have a particular favorite game in the book?
Yeah, I mean, we can maybe take a look at the Queen Sacrifices, and then there's a game, Alireza playing with white. It's around chapter 9, perhaps.
Here we go. Queen against anything.
Alireza.
So before we get into this game, can you give us an overview of the book and what readers can expect from it?
Sure. So my first book was intended to be sort of an encyclopedic coverage of all the common pawn structures that may happen in chess, right? So I tried to kind of go opening by opening, position by position, and try to cover everything. Now, you can never cover everything, but I think that book covers over 90%. And then the remaining few percentage points are just very rare positions that, maybe they're not worth writing a book about. But for this book, I tried to follow a similar approach, but this time, rather than talking about pawn structures, I wanted to talk about material imbalances. So first, I have two families. These are very funny name, but it's like the first one is called balanced imbalances. So what I want to talk about here are things where you basically just traded a piece, but it's not necessarily a sacrifice. So it would be like a bishop against knight. It's like the first one that comes to mind. Then opposite color bishops, bishop pairs, and then finally rook versus two minor pieces, which is a very complicated material imbalance. One of the things that I write in the book actually is that I think a very high percentage of people consciously avoid going into this because it's such a difficult topic. So even if it's the right thing to do, people try to stay away from it.
Yeah. And
I can tell you that I myself try to avoid it before writing this book because I'm not sure that I'm able to evaluate those positions correctly. They're hard to understand and not very well developed in the chess literature.
Yeah.
Then the second family of the book is material imbalances. So here we are talking about all kinds of sacrifices, pawn sacrifices, exchange, piece sacrifices, and then queen. Obviously, you're not going to give up a queen for nothing, right? So this chapter is called Queen versus Anything, right? So this is like queen versus two rooks, queen versus three pieces versus two pieces, positional queen sacrifices, or sometimes even accidental sacrifices, which is kind of a whole, it's kind of like a technique in itself. It's like sometimes, and this happens more often than we would like to admit, but sometimes in chess, you lose material, but in the process of losing that material, you find some opportunity to turn it into a sacrifice. You didn't go into it voluntarily, but somehow you can convert it into a playable position. Here we have a couple of really good examples of that. It's like the Diego Flores against Alan Pichot. It's a very good example. And then the final game is Michael Brown versus me. It's a game where, to be honest, I was against the wall from the start. And I kind of tried to write this game as kind of like a treatise on how to survive a completely lost position by being clever about what material imbalance you have. Yeah, that game, honestly, I thought about resigning within 10 minutes of starting the game. That's how badly it was going. It was pretty embarrassing.
So this was an opening blunder that you just
exactly. It's like my opponent played a little bit drawish line, and I thought I'm going to avoid it by playing some modern system, and then my opponent played so well. Like, I was trying to avoid a draw, and within 10 minutes I was like, okay, now I have to resign.
The opposite.
But I was able to survive and complicate the game a little bit. And eventually I was able to get a win out of that game. But
nice.
One of the key maybe points that game and a lot of games in the second half of the book make is that if you have, so you could say stability, your position is, you could say, is solidified. It doesn't really matter how much material disadvantage you have, right? So you can give up a queen for two pieces. As long as your position doesn't have holes, you're okay. And you can do a lot of things. Because you can have this like an infinite maneuvering sort of thing, right? And another kind of maybe point that I want people to take away from this second half of the book is the idea that it's like almost like a catchphrase. It's like a quantity is better than quality. People always know the other phrase, right? Quantity better than quantity. But here In chess, it's the other way around, because what would you rather have? I mean, two rooks or a queen. Typically, two rooks is better, right? Or three pieces or a queen. Or knight and two pawns versus a rook. Typically, knight and two pawns is stronger, right? Anyway, it all comes down to that idea. It's like if you have a stable position, if you have more pieces, you can maneuver until you're able to win. And I think this part of the book, I think the games are very beautiful. I'm very happy with a lot of them. We have rook sacrifices, like positional rook sacrifices. It's very interesting. And I think beyond the learning, I think readers will really enjoy it just on a visual level.
Yeah.
And then, well, I mean, there's a chapter 10, which is, it's a chapter where I basically included every game that I thought was nice, and I was sad not to include, but I couldn't justify putting in the main body of the book.
Okay.
So this chapter the games are a little bit shorter, or they are fragments, or they are analyzed a little bit less, but they're still very interesting.
They cover the topics from above. These are all seen in here,
yes.
like kind of a mix.
Yeah. Chapter 10 is a mixture. Yeah, it covers effectively every other topic in the book, briefly and in a more practical way.
And then we have exercises here as well.
As always, yes, of course.
Yes. So you wanted to take a look at the Alireza game.
Yes.
Here we go.
Okay.
Bring up the board. So Alireza is white.
Yes. He's playing against Kartikeyan. And here Kartikeyan playing kind of an interesting opening move. It's like he's trying to maneuver, right? His thinking is Kartikeyan will move the queen, and then I will just take on knight takes d4, and I'll have like a Maroczy pawn structure, very comfortable. But here Kartikeyan somehow just thought, okay, you know what? No.
Wow.
So this is very rare. It's like how common is it to find a voluntary queen sacrifice 9 moves into the game, right?
Yeah.
Against to be honest, one of the reasons it took me so long to write is because I was always searching for games that would be interesting. And I believe I found this game after maybe on year 5 of the book. Basically, when I found it, I was like, wow. This has to go into the book. It's like, so that immediate day I started checking it with the engine to make sure that there are no obvious mistakes, that everything is correct. Because I don't want to write a sacrifice that was like a lucky strike. It's like it has to be correct for it to be worthy, right? And I can tell you that after the entire analysis, this is correct.
Wow.
I think that this position black is better.
Wow.
But so anyway, so pawn takes, and well, I mean the pawn structure is broken. So here white had to decide, it's like, okay, do I protect the pawn, or do I just advance? Or do I just try to advance? F3 is like the healthiest line. And, maybe we can just scroll through a few moves, but it gets kind of very interesting in that there's a moment here where Kartikeyan could have recovered the material by playing 93. If he plays 93, he's threatening a double on F2.
Yeah. So
basically, Alireza would have no choice but to take. Take bishop takes, then E2, and then we have this ending, right? So what's this, right? You could say that black is a little bit better because of the double pawns, right? It's like we're back to equal material.
Yeah.
So you could say that Kartikeyan can play this without any risk. He can make a draw anytime he wants, but he can play for a win. And he decided not to play this.
Wow.
So it's interesting that he had such conviction in the correctness of his sacrifice. That he didn't feel the need to recover the material. Wow. He just played 96. So anyway, I mean, the game just keeps going, and gradually you can see how white sort of starts getting squeezed. Maybe this is a position to remember. It's like when you look at this position, you see, okay, white has this massive material advantage, but do you even have a plan, right? Is there any place that you can say, okay, if I had 3 moves, I would be able to achieve X? And the answer is not really, right? So when you analyze this position with an engine, the engine tells you like this is like a complete equality, 0, 0, 0.
But over the board, you wouldn't think that, right?
Yeah, that's one factor. But the other interesting thing is that if you analyze with the engine longer and longer and deeper, eventually the engine does realize that this is just kind of waiting for black.
Wow.
So there are no good defenses, right? So it's like the pawn of c4 in this case is going to be lost sooner or later, right? So here you have to play a4 to prevent the bishop from coming to give you a check. Then the pressure starts.
White's pieces are just kind of squished. and
Yeah, and then something interesting to kind of maybe remember from this game as well is that Black is in really no rush to trade anything. In fact, Black would like to keep as many pieces on the board as possible, because the more pieces you have, the harder it is for this queen to activate, right? It's like if we were to trade a bunch of things carelessly, let's say we say, oh, you know what, I want to recover one pawn. And in the process of recovering a pawn, you trade a bunch of pieces. This is not a good idea, right? After you do this, the queen will become active. So you would rather take your time, spend an additional 10 moves if you have to.
Is this common in most of these sacrifices, that you want to keep the pieces on the board?
I would say whenever you're playing against a queen, this is maybe one kind of general advice that you can take. So when you're playing against a queen, keep as many pieces on the board as you can.
Okay.
And keep your king as safe as possible, right? So there's other examples, for example, where the game is even, but one side just makes maybe a clever maneuver to open the position. The game continues to be even, but the side with the queen just has a massive practical advantage, because now you always have this check. There's a lot of things to calculate. It's very hard to play with the other side. It's just practically winning approach. Yeah, and then one of the things that the readers will notice as well is, and I'm even seeing it as I go through these variations, is that there is a lot of detail in this book. I feel like a lot of lines in this book are sort of like games in and of themselves, right? It's like here, this analysis has like maybe 10 other possible continuations that go almost all the way to checkmate. And I wanted to do it that way because I think the positions were very interesting, and it wouldn't be almost fair to the position to just say, oh, Black is better. No. We need to see the details, right? It's like, it's very hard to tell what's actually going on. Even the engine can't tell. I can't tell. So I wanted to go all the way to the end. Sometimes these games are just so beautiful that it's just nice to see them longer, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, a lot of variations ending almost in checkmate. But, readers who feel a little bit perhaps overwhelmed with the amount of variations, you can always just stick to the main line and get all of the key ideas just in the comments. So, well, knight takes. 23, okay, 95, take. And then, maybe this is one final position that we can just remember is this one. So here, what do we have? Let's just analyze this position and get a general sense of what happened. So Black has 7 pawns, right? White has 5. 2 pieces for a queen, right? So we have 3 plus 3 is 6, 2 pawns is 8. So white is still a little bit up in material, but if you look at the position, it's like, if you were white, it's like, is there anything that you can attack?
Yeah.
Maybe you can try to make an attack on f7, but it's protected, right? It's like all these pawns. There's no hole. This knight doesn't have a square. In the meantime, all the pieces are tied up, right? Like this rook is busy, it's protecting a pawn. The knight is busy protecting this one, right? So there's a lot of ways that this game could have ended. In this analysis, I actually showed 2 ways. I showed the way that the game ended and the way that I would have liked the game to finish. And because I think it's just visually more flashy, so I really wanted to show my own finish.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think readers would really like this. There is another game, just to kind of tempt people to review this, is played by Ivanchuk, where the game looks like a draw, and Ivanchuk just decided to sacrifice a rook. And maybe we can take a very quick look.
Move 9.
Yeah, exactly. It's this is in the peace sacrifices. It is Vasily Ivanchuk against Victor Erdosh. Yeah. So it is. It looks like nothing is going on, right? It's like if you look at this position, you might think, this is going to be a draw, right? It's like we got the bishop pair, but no way to enter. Everything is blocked. Why aren't these people just signing a draw and be done, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Move 39 as well. Time control is about to hit.
Exactly. And then here Ivanchuk says, no, thank you.
No.
So he's willing to give up a rook for basically 2 pawns, right? And please tell me.
2 pass pawns, though. This is the key
yeah. So he will have a c5 and e6. But, one thing to consider is the pawns are not connected, right? So I wouldn't immediately think that these pawns are going to beat me if I was Black. But you see, this sacrifice exposes a lot of problems in Black's position. Like, the king is a little bit exposed. We have these beautiful bishops in consecutive diagonals. This is an idea that I try to drill over and over throughout the book. When I talk about bishop pair, for example, is that bishops on consecutive diagonals work very well together, right? And that's kind of what we are seeing here. It's like now we're going to be able to maybe capture an f5, and then the king will have a hard time hiding, right? You got three diagonals, bishop, and the queen. And then, yeah, I mean, you can analyze this over and over. This is, I believe, +3 already. So this is not a practical sacrifice. This is a correct sacrifice.
Correct. So rook takes was all correct.
Exactly. I don't know how much you've actually calculated, but it's just a mixture between, this kind of just general genius and this massive intuition, right?
Wow. Do you go into the psychology at all throughout the book of these sacrifices?
Not as much, because I was trying to, I mean, sacrifices can be very interesting just from a practical point of view, but here I was trying to prioritize ideas that would be considered objectively true. None of the sacrifices shown in this book succeed because somebody made a mistake. They generally succeed because they were the right thing to do, or at minimum because they advance the position, right? It's like maybe they are not immediately winning, but they are the most appropriate and most natural way to continue. So, or maybe like a way to put your opponent in a difficult position, but without being wrong in the process. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow, the fact that this accuracy is very, very interesting. And it would also be interesting to know how much time they spent on moves like this. Actually, these players.
Yes. Yeah. It's very hard to imagine. Some of the lines are very delicate to actually make this work.
Yeah, wow. And what I really like about your books is that you really kind of summarize here with final remarks everything that you go through. And you go through white's plans, black's plans as well. You really make it easy for the reader to understand what they just learned.
Yeah, I mean, I try to make it kind of like a college textbook.
Yeah.
And I think that helps a lot. I mean, again, this is kind of like thinking like a coach, right? It's like whenever I would give a lesson, I would just ask people, okay, what did you learn today?
Yeah.
And in my opinion, if a student cannot put in words what they learned, maybe they didn't learn that much, right?
Yeah.
It's very hard to the position that we are seeing will never happen again, right? It's like, so the learning cannot be based on the position. It has to be based on some kind of concept that you're able to extract from whatever was discussed, right? It's like this kind of, there is the specific tactics and the general idea. So if you are not able to capture that general idea, then we need to talk about that until you are able to understand what you saw.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I try to put this emphasis on putting always some, what is it that we're going to learn, and then notice all these key moments. It's like if you notice those, then maybe you can remember better and you can really improve.
Yeah, and apply it to completely different games and positions.
Exactly. You're able to kind of see, this is the pattern that will happen again. So this is the concept that I need to recycle for next time.
Wow. So instructive, but also very entertaining with these sacrifices.
Right. And to be honest, there's always like that visual aspect, the kind of visual component that, at least for me, is very important. I really care about just kind of like the diagrams, just kind of looking beautiful. It's like, so I really want to make sure that every game has at least one moment where I'm very happy. I mean, it's like, maybe we can see, for example, the game in the bishop pair chapter. We can look at a game by Leitao. So yeah, I mean, for example, if we look at the finish that I wrote here, the game didn't exactly finish this way, but I kind of got to the point where I was happy with the ideas that we got from the game. And then I thought, okay, this is the way that the game should have ended, right? So if you look at this position, so White's strategy has been very successful, right? White managed to kind of gain control of the board using the bishop pair and kind of have always these tactical ideas. And now we finished the game. How? Sacrifice an exchange. We're starting mate, right? So our opponent tries to run away, and then we bring our other bishop into the board, right?
Yeah.
And then in the end, what we are basically able to use is a combination between these connected passers and this bishop pair in consecutive diagonals, right? So it's like it kind of communicates a lot of ideas in one diagram. So what are the ideas?
Yeah.
Number one, connected passers win games, right? This is one idea, right? Another idea is that this bishop pairs in consecutive diagonals make it very hard for the opponent to play, to escape, to hide, right? And then finally, I mean, there is this kind of notion that is kind of repeated over and over when we talk about exchange sacrifices, that you can freely give an exchange if your opponent's rooks don't have open files. So in this case, I mean, yeah, you have these rooks, but they are kind of trapped inside the board, right? So it's like it kind of almost doesn't even matter. We even have another interesting exchange sacrifice earlier in the game. I believe, I mean, it's something that just kind of, you see it and it immediately strikes you as the right move. You don't even need to calculate. It's just, this is clearly the right thing to do. And right, intuition, or like maybe you have some kind of foundational knowledge. One of my goals, to be honest, when I wrote this is I hope that people can just get some sort of idea about things that work. And if you know that they work in other kind of model games, then you know that you can apply them to your game without having to calculate. For me, it's very important that if you really understand, you can massively reduce the amount of calculation that you need to do. Because you know, and not everything is calculation. Some things is just you understand. For example, here, Rook D8, and what's the move? It must be Rook D6, right? It's like this kind of has to work,
feels
right? It's like it feels right, and then it's like if your opponent takes, which you know they kind of shouldn't, but if they dare to take, you are not concerned, right? It's like the position is blocked. The rooks don't have any points
again,
yeah. We got our bishops again, and we have the sacrifice.
Oh, that's so pretty.
And then okay, it's like, do you have to calculate this?
Yeah.
Not really, right? It's like we are down material, but it doesn't matter, right? It's like we have this massive bishop, the other bishop.
Look at this.
Look at the king, look at our king, look at the pawns, look at the activity of the rooks.
Yeah.
Okay, this is something, right?
Yeah. This is also very helpful for like time management. So blitz, or if I'm in bad time trouble, to know these things that you said without needing to calculate, but just having that feeling of knowing that it's correct.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, between my two books, I feel like I developed this ability to kind of play very fast. So nowadays, whenever I have some kind of like a free time, I just play bullet.
Yeah.
But I am not trying to win on time. I'm literally trying to win positionally. It's like I make piece sacrifice, exchange sacrifice, and I just kind of have a general feeling for what's likely to work. So that is kind of very effective.
So you think you've improved through your books?
Yeah, I have improved my bullet skills by writing chess books.
Yeah, that should be in the preface too, or if you were advertising the book, like, do you want to improve at bullet?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you have the right foundation, it's like you can recycle so much. You don't need to think that much. You just kind of know kind of what's a promising direction.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mauricio. Do you have any final remarks for our viewers?
Final remarks for the viewers. Well, I mean, I hope that everyone will enjoy this book. I think it's a very nice addition to kind of the just chess literature, and I hope that by reading this book, they will have a kind of a complementary sort of understanding, right? Because right now with chess structures, we can understand kind of one axis, right? This axis is like, what's the pawn structure, right? Now you have this imbalance, which is like a different axis, right? So it's like if you combine the two, you can be like, okay, now I understand how I should play based on the pawn structure, but I also understand how I should play based on the material that's on the board. And I think that if you combine those two, you can have a very solid and very comprehensive understanding of chess. So I really feel like the two books work together very well. Even though many people throughout the years said, okay, you know what, you should just write another book with more structures. And I have thought about it, but I feel like this adds more value in the sense that it kind of gives you two perspectives. Now you understand one way and a different way. And well, I mean, enjoy.
Well, it was wonderful talking to you, and it's also a pleasure reading your writing. I think you're very natural at that, and you come across quite friendly, like in a coach way. So it's easy to learn from you. I learned a lot in this call itself, so thank you for that.
Oh no, thank you.
And yeah, the book is available on Forward Chess. I will link it down below. But for now, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
See you.